morning. Thank you for joining us for our Bake Along with Chef Rob. Today we will be making the cafe's famous scones with Chef Rob. I am your host, Janine. I will be replying to questions or comments you have for the chef as we bake along. Take it away, Chef Rob.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for signing up for our scone class. I'm really excited about this. Two quick things. I overlooked putting on the equipment needed. And since everybody for you to get a rolling pin and a juicer. If you don't have a juicer, you could just use an extra fork, would be fine. So there's just two extra things that we need, and that'll be fine. So today we are going to be making scones, and we're going to make two different types of scones. And I will lead you up to the point of baking them. So we don't have to take all the extra time of doing that. That would take more than what we're scheduled to be on the Zoom call. And the two scones that we are going to be making, and you should have gotten your recipes, is the blueberry lemon scone, which will be made and look like the traditional triangle scone. And this scone has an egg in it. And what an egg does, an egg adds some lift to your batter, and your finished scone will be kind of airy and a little bit more cake-like, but not like a regular cake. It'll be softer, and it'll have a different texture to it. And the Trifold fruit scone, which is really fun to make, contains no egg. And we fold it, and it's kind of like, I don't know if anybody's ever made a croissant, but it's kind of like in that kind of fashion where we're going to be building layers, because there's a little bit of extra butter in it, and then we're folding the dough to add all these different layers, and there's no egg in it, so it's going to be very pastry-like. It's going to be very flaky. It won't have that kind of like richness of a batter that has an egg in it. So just to put those kind of pointers out there. And just to give you some highlights or some history of scones, I have some scone history topics here. The exact origin of the word scone is, I guess, is quite a mystery. And the word scone may derive from the Middle Dutch word schoonbrood, which means, in which the scone means pure or clean, and brood means bread, translating to a beautiful bread. And the Scottish think it comes from the Stone of Destiny, the place where the kings of Scotland were crowned. The third option is that it comes from the Gaelic, let's see, Sogron Aran, I guess, which means a block or lump of bread. And sometimes the scone does look like that. Now, scones became very fashionable in the ritual of taking tea in England with Anna, the Duchess of Bedford. She ordered the servants to bring her some tea and some sweetbreads, which included scones. And she loved it so much, she made the English tradition of afternoon tea precisely at 4 p.m. to be served daily with clotted cream. So scones have a long history. Scones are very fun to work with. Again, it's a very versatile item that you can add different flavors to it, different fruits and so forth. And we'll go over that a little bit more while we're making it. So let's jump into making our scone. Yes?
I have a question.
Okay.
The Star family asks, can you substitute half and half for heavy cream?
Well, you can. You can. For the best pastries, I always stick with the thickest liquid I could find, such as heavy cream. And I use the heaviest cream I can find is a 40% heavy cream. And the reason that buttermilk works too. And the reason why that is, if you use a half and half or just like a regular whole milk, it may give you a drier or more of a bland and a flatter scone. But it's okay to use. It's just you'll have a different end result. You could also swap out the heavy cream, if you wanted to, for almond milk or oat milk, another, non-dairy if you wanted to. But again, you might have a flatter scone. The oat milk, almond milk would probably actually give some additional flavor to it. So yeah, switching out ingredients is fine. The end result may be a little bit different than using the more traditional ingredients. Okay. Okay. So we're going to start off making the blueberry scone. So everyone should have their ingredients, and I've kind of pre-measured my stuff out, so I won't have to do this. So we're going to start out with 2 cups of flour. And just a tip, if anybody does, if you're scooping out your flour as we go along, what you always want to do is to make sure you get the precise measurements is to, take a spoon and put your flour into the measuring cup. And then you kind of, overflow it a little bit, and then you kind of top it off. And the reason you do that is because if you just went into your flour bag or something and you kind of dug into it like this, you're compacting your flour, and you probably actually would have more than a half a cup, which will also then affect your end product. So that's just a little tip there. So we have our 2.5 cups of flour. We have our 1/2 cup of sugar. And I don't know if Jean, can you see, is anybody like getting their ingredients as we go along, or are they all pre-measured out already? I'm just curious.
Those cameras are off, so I can't see.
Okay. Well, then we have 2.5 tablespoons of baking powder. We have a 1/2 teaspoon of 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Okay, and then we're going to have 8 ounces of butter. Now, the butter should be cold, and I even noted down here it can be frozen. Frozen is even better. It's going to be a little bit more work for you, but you want your butter to be cold in making scones or a pie dough, stuff like that. You want it to be cold, because if it's too warm, then you're going to get just a big ball of mess. Yes.
Colleen and Amanda wrote, we have all measured out for Trifold. We only have 1/2 and 1/2. Joel was out of cream.
Okay, not a problem, not a problem, not a problem. So we have our butter, and then we also have some, we got our heavy cream, and I'm going to actually pour this out. So I have my Prairie Farms 40% heavy cream, and we need a 1/2 cup. Heavy cream. You want that to be cold as well. We have our vanilla and our blueberries, and you want a heaping cup, which is basically like a pint. And if you want more, the more the better. It's just like a guideline. And then we are going to have a lemon, and we'll deal with this in a bit. And 1 whole egg and the heavy cream, and here's your egg, and then the heavy cream and the lemon juice and the turbinado sugar. Okay, here we have this. Someone put this over here. It doesn't roll off my table. So the first thing, and I don't know if people want to bake these off right away, that's fine. If you don't, you can put these in your fridge and have them for tomorrow. But if you want to bake them today, right after we're done here, preheat your oven to 400 degrees. And, ovens are different. So you might know your oven. If it says 400, you're like, oh, that's too much. I got to go to 375, or I need to go up a little bit. That's up to you. Every oven's a little bit different. Then we want to take one of our baking sheets, and we want to grease it. And I prefer to grease my pans when I'm making scones. I just think the added butter on the bottom of them makes them a little bit crispier and a little bit flavorful. And if you don't, you can just use parchment paper. You just take a piece of parchment paper and you can put that on your pan, and that'll be fine. But we want to grease our pan. So you just take a little bit of butter and grease it. Now, I wanted to point out some kitchen facts. Here at the cafe, I'm not wearing a mask today just because we're doing the show, but I do wear a mask all the time. And I do wear gloves in the kitchen when I'm cooking, particularly when I'm making ready to eat food. But the thing about baking and cooking, and I'm not wearing gloves right now because there's that kill step when everything goes into the oven and it reaches a certain temperature. So, I'm not using hands today. I did wash my hands. So it's okay to, not wear gloves, and you guys are at home, and so that's fine as well. So everyone should have a greased pan. What we want to do is we want to combine our first ingredients, set of ingredients. We're going to take our flour, our sugar, our baking powder, our cinnamon, and our salt. And you wanted to whisk this together. I think I missed that on the list too, but you could just use the fork just to mix everything together nicely. Just want to kind of combine it. So it's just, I don't know if you can see that, it's just all mixed up. That's all it is. Now, here's the trick for the butter, which I love. Now, there's two ways, about three ways you can do this. We need to get our butter finely ground up into the flour. Now, the old-fashioned way was to use two knives where you cut the butter up and then you cut it back and forth into little pieces. Or you could use a pastry brush where you put the butter in and you grind it like this. And what you're looking for is for the butter to be a little like pea sizes, very, very small pieces. You want it to kind of be broken up. So you can do it that way. This is the best way to do it. You take your box grater and you put it directly in the flour. And if it's frozen, it even grates better. It's a little bit harder. You have to do more work at it, but mine is cold. And you take it and you just grate the butter like this. And it looks like Parmesan cheese. You just grate it up. So this is the 8 tablespoons or 4 ounces of unsalted butter, not salted butter. If you'd added salted butter, it'd be like really salty. So you want to grind up the butter or grate the butter. So the colder, the better. And, as you get down to the end, you're going to have little chunks here. You don't want to go down too far, so you start grating your finger off. So, you have that, and that's fine. You kind of scrape off the butter a little bit. Okay. So now you have this mound of butter like this. Now there's 2 ways you can go about this. You could use your pastry cutter again to help mix it up. Or again, since we're cooking, you could use your hands. And, this actually feels kind of good. It's a good hand massage to grind up the butter with your fingers. And all you want to do is mix it up until it gets a little finer. And you could just take the butter, if there's a little big chunk, and you just kind of, mix it, press it together and rub it between your fingers. And it just comes apart really nicely. So then it kind of looks like this. If you could see that, it's just kind of like sawdust now with cold butter in it. Okay. So you have that. So you want to rinse your hands off. This is my portable sink. I don't know if anybody can see that. Okay. So now you have your butter is all mixed up. And what you want to do is you want to take your egg and you have your cream, and you want to crack your egg into your cream. Make sure you don't get any shells in it. If you wanted to, you could crack your egg into a separate bowl, make sure you don't get any eggs in it, and then put it in. And then we're going to add our vanilla. And we're using 1.5 teaspoons. Now, if you like vanilla, add a little bit more. If you don't like vanilla, don't add it. So 1.5 into the milk egg. Okay, then you want to mix this up a little bit so the egg gets broken up. Okay. Put it right here for now. Okay, so now what you want to do is you want to just drizzle the egg cream vanilla mixture into the flour butter. Okay. And what you want to do next step is to take a fork and just start to mix it around. Now you'll be surprised. You'll be like, oh my gosh, this is still really dry. You know, with all this butter, it's going to come together. So you don't want to mix it too much yet. So we just do a little bit. You get your lemon. I washed my lemon. I always wash my fruit before I use anything, lemons, limes, whatever it might be. So what you want to do is you want to zest the lemon into the batter. And we're going to do a whole lemon. If you don't like lemon, you don't have to do it. You know, another ingredient you could add to this if you wanted to make it really good is some fresh thyme. So you have like blueberry, lemon, and thyme go really well together. And if you ever have a recipe that, well, this one does actually, you know, a lemon juice and zest, you always want to zest your lemon first because it's a lot harder to zest a lemon that then has already been squeezed, believe it or not. You know, it's cut in half and then it's already mushed. And so you don't want to, you want to zest it beforehand. So you get all your zest off. Check underneath, get a little bit left off there. You take your blueberries, which have been washed, and you just pour them in. Now, if you wanted to, you could add a little bit of lemon juice as well. So you just take a chef's knife or whatever knife you have you want. You could cut your lemon in half. Now, if you have a juicer, this is the easy way to go. If you don't have a juicer, and we're going to add a lot of lemon juice, you want to make sure if it has any seeds, you don't get the seeds in there. You could just squeeze it with your hand, catch the seeds, or you could use a fork and you can put it inside and turn and break up the pulp. So I'm just going to use my hand. It's a lot easier. And, you know, I'm just using just a little bit, not a lot. Okay. So I did catch a seed. I'll wash my hands off. Okay. Now you just want to stir this up a little bit more. Start to mix up the blueberries. You don't want to break them. You could use frozen blueberries as well. And if you had frozen blueberries, keep them frozen when you add them to the batter. If you let them thaw out, they're going to get too soft and then they may bleed into the batter. Okay, so now you have this mixed up. Now you're going to probably still have a little bit of dry ingredients on the bottom, and that's fine. So if you take some of your extra flour, I don't know if I mentioned that in the ingredients, but we need a little bit of extra flour just to put on your board here. It doesn't stick. You take the dough and you put it on there. You just pour it out. It's going to be kind of sticky on your fingers, but that's okay. The next thing you want to do is you just want to kind of work this a little bit. Turn it over. Some of the blueberries are going to try to escape. That's okay. Some might break a little bit. That's okay. How's everybody doing? Looking good? Is everybody's
Looking good.
everybody's dough's coming together? Any problems? If it's getting a little sticky on your fingers, you can add a little bit of flour to the top of it or to your hands. On the pastry board too. And it'll finally come together in a ball. So it has all come together. I mean, there's a little bit of scrap down here, but that's okay. So it's come together. So then, you know, what you want to do is you just want to gently pat the dough into about an 8-inch circle. And I forgot to tell you, bring a measuring, but you know, there it is, 8-inch. You know, it's about by 8.5. It doesn't have to be exact.
You have a question?
Yeah.
Marianne was asking, would Chef Rob comment on non-aluminum baking powders, please? Some people can taste the aluminum in baking powder.
Well, that's a great point, Marianne. And I did have a note about that. Yeah. There are some non-aluminum baking powders. You know, the aluminum, it's not harmful to you, but it does give some people an aftertaste of the aluminum, whatever that might be. I don't know why that is, but I prefer to use baking powder that does not include any aluminum. There's brands out there. One is called Rumford. I believe Trader Joe's has a non-aluminum one. Whole Foods 365 has a non-aluminum baking powder, and there's no different effect on it. I can't tell you why some add aluminum to it. Maybe it's for a expense reason, but I prefer to use non-aluminum included baking powder.
And Marianne responded, Rumford is a good brand. Thank you.
Okay, so now that you have your scone batter in a circle there, about an 8-inch circle, you want to take your a chef's knife or a bench scraper if you have one. And what we're going to do is we're going to cut it into 8s. So you just cut it in half, and then you just cut it in half the other way, make them as equal as you can. And then you cut each quarter in half. There you have 8 nice scones. Then you take your prepared baking sheet and you place them on it. And I like to put them, I can get 8 on my baking sheet. I don't know, depending on what size of baking sheet you have. You put 8 on there. I kind of stagger them. They will expand because of the baking powder and the egg. They will get wider, they'll get a little bit bigger. You spread them out like this. Now, we've been playing with this dough for, you know, at least 15 minutes or so. So the butter's kind of warmed up. Now, if we put this straight into the oven, they would kind of spread a little bit fast. So what we want to do is we want to put this back into the refrigerator for about 15 minutes for the butter to get cold again. And so this is where I'm going to kind of stop this recipe and just tell you what to do next. So what I want you to do is I want you to put this into your refrigerator. After it comes out of the fridge, we are what I want you to do is you would brush this with an egg and a little bit of heavy cream whipped up. So it's 1 whole egg, and I believe I said 1 tablespoon of heavy cream. So I'm just going to eye it. That's like 1 tablespoon. You just want to mix it up. It's going to be really thick. Again, you could use, your alternative dairy product. So what you want to do is when you mix it up, you just want to mix it until the egg is not stringy. So it just kind of flows like that. We have that. And then you would take your pastry brush, you dip it in, and you brush it. You don't want to coat it. You just want a light brushing on it. Too much will just make it soggy. So it's just a light brushing. So you brush everyone 15 minutes in the fridge, take it out, brush it with the egg and heavy cream batter. And then you can take, well, I do turbinado sugar and just top it. Make it very heavy. It'll be really crunchy as it bakes. You could skip the turbinado sugar if you want, because I also included a lemon glaze option. And I'm just going to walk you through that instead of making it, because that can be applied to the scone after it cools completely. So for the glaze, it's 1 cup of powdered sugar, and you just put that into a bowl. 1 tablespoon of lemon juice, and 1 teaspoon of lemon zest again. And you stir it up. If you want it to be thinner, add more lemon juice. If you want it to be thicker, add less lemon juice. It all depends on the consistency. And then after the scones are completely cooled, you can just drizzle it on the scones and let it set up for a little bit. It'll get hardened a little bit, and then they'll be ready to serve. So that pretty much covers the blueberry scones. I've led you up to the point of baking. So in 15 minutes, while we're working on the trifold, in between, you can stick the scones in, the blueberry scones in, and by the time we're done with the trifold, your blueberries will be done. Okay. So if everybody wants to put your scones in the fridge, that'll be great. Clean up your area a little bit, and we'll move on to the trifolds.
With scone either in the title or actual scone recipes. One of them that's kind of relevant to the holiday coming up is vampires, bones, and treacle scones. We also have a few other mysteries, because scones are apparently really good for mystery. We have cherry scones and broken bones, and scones and bones.
Scones and bones.
Leave no stone unturned.
Nice.
For our 2 nonfiction books, The Cottage Kitchen, which has a recipe for, let me open this, a Prosecco scones, and the Shamrock and Peach, which has a recipe for I had it marked and then my paper tore. A gingerbread scone with clotted lemon cream.
That sounds good. Maybe I'll have to make that one. Very good.
On to our next scone.
Okay, is everybody ready? Okay, and I will show you what my scones look like after we're done. I did make some yesterday. I do have the blueberry and the trifold, and I'll show you the difference, what they look like. Unfortunately, you can't taste them here, but you can come by the cafe. So for the fruit scone, I love making this one. It is so different than a traditional scone. You get a different presentation, you get a different taste, texture. It's great. I love it. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to have 1 cup of whole milk. Again, you could use, alternative if you want. You just may have a different end product. So 1 cup of whole milk, cold whole milk. And 1/4 cup of sugar, 1 teaspoon of sea salt. And what we want to do is we want to combine these ingredients. And this method for making this scone is entirely different than the blueberry. So we take our sugar and we're going to add it to the milk. We're going to take our salt. We're going to add it to the milk. And you just want to give it a stir so it kind of starts to dissolve. Sugar and salt will settle to the bottom, so we'll stir it again. And then when we pour this out, you'll see some at the bottom. We need to scoop that out into the batter. So we'll just set that aside for a minute. So then we have our flour, 3 cups of all-purpose flour. And I use unbleached flour. I just think I don't know if it tastes better, it looks better. I don't know the bleaching process of flour. I just try to eliminate as much interaction as I can. And then we have our 2.5 teaspoons of baking powder. We need another bowl. Take our flour, put it into the bowl. Add our baking powder. Okay. Then you want to just give it a couple stirs to combine the flour and the baking powder. And we can get our butter. And the recipe calls for 12 ounces of, or 12 tablespoons of butter, 6 ounces divided. So what we're going to use now is only 10. And then the other 2 ounces is going to be used as a spread on top of the batter, the dough, before we fold it up. So you should have 12 or 10 tablespoons of butter. Again, we're going to go whatever method you like to use. I'm going to use my box grater again. And the butter is cold. And you just grate it in to the flour baking powder mixture. This is a good workout in the morning, particularly if you're right-handed. If you wanted, you could switch to the left so you get a balanced workout. Now, we make several types of scones here at the cafe on any given day. Lavender scones we've made, chocolate scones, peach scones. It all depends on what I find at the market. So you have your butter, again, all grated. Again, it just looks like a pile of mess. And again, you could use the pastry cutter. I'll show you how this time I'll use that. The pastry cutter, it's a little bit, I wouldn't say easier. I just think it takes a little bit more time to do. Again, this is a better workout for your arm. But then you don't get that hand massage. So everybody should be kind of grinding up the butter a little bit here. And it does stick to the pastry cutter, so you have to kind of make sure you get that off. You don't want to lose any. How's everybody doing? Good.
Pauline and Amanda asked, can you show us what it looks like when mixed?
The flour and butter? Sure. So it just, again, it looks just kind of really coarsely ground up, the flour and the butter. You guys see that? Yeah. So it's nice small pieces. Okay. I'm gonna wash my hands off real quick. Okay, so now we're going to add our wet mixture. Give it another stir. Let's let it settle a little bit. You just want to pour it in. Maybe some sugar at the bottom. You want to just kind of get that out. Now, we're not adding any vanilla this time to this recipe. It doesn't call for it. If you want to add some, you can. You know, it's all up to you. It really is. You want to take your fork or spoon and kind of stir it together again. Just so you can start to get the ingredients, all the dry mixture wet. Now, as in the blueberry scone, we added the blueberries here. We're not doing it for this one. This is a different method. You want to stir it around, not too much. You want to get some extra flour, put it on your board or your tabletop, whatever you might be using. And we want to pour the dough on. And again, it's going to come out kind of dry on the bottom, and that's fine. Okay. Again, you want to kind of work it, and it might feel a little wet. That's fine. You could add a little bit of flour to it because it'll all come together.
Larry asked how much milk was added to Trifold?
It was 1 cup. So as you're working this, it's going to come together. My board's getting a little sticky, so I add a little bit more flour to it. Kind of like, you know, you fold it over.
And Larry said, thank you.
Okay, Larry. So you want to get a nice dough. And you can actually see the difference in the dough kind of changing, because before it was like really white and kind of like chalky looking. But as you're working the dough, it kind of starts to become a little, I wouldn't say clearer, but it doesn't look as floury, I guess. I don't think there's an actual term for it. I'm just making that up. Okay, so now I have my dough. Looks really nice. How does everybody's look? I wish I could see yours. I'm going to put down a little extra flour on your board. You can pick the dough up. See, it's nice in one piece. What you want to do is we're going to roll this out a little bit now. We're going to roll this into a 14 width by 8, 14 length by 8 width. And here you can use your rolling pin, whatever one kind of rolling pin you have. You just want to roll it out. Now, it doesn't have to be exactly 14 by 8. And as you roll it out, you'll see like all the little pieces of butter in it. And that's all the goodness. That's where all the flavor is. And they give it a lot of flavor, a lot of taste. So, and you know, as you're rolling it out, it's kind of like, oh, it's not actually a rectangle. I mean, that's okay. You know, you just kind of work the dough in that direction. You want, you can get your measuring tape and see, you know, mine's like 16 in one area and it's like 14 in another. You know, it's almost a foot over here and it's like about 8.5 there. So what you can do is take your bench scraper and then you can form it into your rectangle. If you don't have a bench scraper, you could use, you could use the back of a knife if you're careful enough. You could do that. You could just use your hand. Now I got it to like, it's a little bit, that's about 14, and that's like about 8.5. So, and again, it doesn't have to be an exact science. So here we have our first step. Now, the recipe called for 12 tablespoons of butter. Wanted 2 extra tablespoons. And it can be, room temperature butter. Hopefully you guys had it out. And you just want to kind of squish it a little bit. If you wanted to, you can even put it in a microwave. And what you want to do is you just want to dot it and spread it on top of the dough.
How long would they put it in the microwave for?
Oh, just like, 10 seconds. I mean, you don't want it melted butter. You want it to be softened butter. So I could have said, hopefully people had some of the butter out. Maybe I should have told you guys to put some of the butter out and let it sit at room temperature. Because if you do, you could put it in your hand and dot it like that. So this is kind of like how you make croissants, because I don't know if anybody's made croissants out there. It's full of butter. It's a big sheet of butter layered, and then you're folding the croissant dough to make the layers of the croissant. So here you have some nice butter on there. So now you take your cherries, and it was like 1 cup or a half a cup of cherries. Well, I'm using cherries. I'm not sure what. You could use any type of fruit, dried fruit you want, dried apricots, cranberries, figs, whatever you want. If you want to use fresh fruit, and I've used fresh fruit, I have learned the best fresh fruit to use are fruit that are not actually ripened yet. Like if a peach, I make really nice peach trifold scones. Use them when they're very hard. I mean, not like rock hard, but pretty hard. Because if you use a fruit that is like overripe, what's going to happen is it's soft already, and when you bake it, it's just going to bleed, and it's going to make the dough kind of just slide off each other, because you have 3 layers here, so the dough is going to slide off. It's going to not look very nice. If it's a harder fruit, it'll stay together, and it'll actually soften during the baking process. Dried fruit is the best type of in this type of scone, but fresh fruit is usable. So you can use a half a cup of whatever fruit you're using. I'm using cherries, dried cherries. And you want to put them on. What you want to do is you want to press them into the dough. You want to make them stick to it. Okay. I leave a little bit of room on the edges, just because this is where we're going to be folding it. So you press them on like that. So what you want to do is we're going to fold this like an envelope. So you want to take one side and you go like 1/3 over. And if it sticks a little bit, that's okay. You can just take a little flour and you throw it on there and it comes off. Now, if your ends don't like line up, like if they're curving a little bit, just take the dough and stretch it. So you got 1/3 over like that. Cut it down. You take the other side and you turn it over. Now again, it's not meeting up. Just stretch it. A lot of elasticity in the dough. So you want to kind of make it look like a log. And this actually looks just like a croissant dough. You want to maybe just flatten it out a little bit. And then the next step is we're going to fold this over. You take this and you just fold it over on top. Okay. I flipped it around. I just like this side to me, but you don't have to do that. Now you'll notice probably you have like one larger end and one That's just because this is, where this is folding over. So if you want to, and then what we need to do now is we need to roll this out a little bit more, at least pat it down to an 8 length by 4 width. So you can take this dough and you can kind of work it a little bit this way. If you want, you can just flatten it out. So I don't know, did anybody else put your other scones in the oven, or are you just kind of going to wait till we're done?
Mine are in the oven.
All right. All right, so you have your folded over dough now. What you want to do is you want to take your chef's knife again and cut this in half. Now you have 2 pieces, and then you want to try to cut this into as equal length as possible, as much as you can. So mine is measuring about I don't know, about 10 inches or so. So you don't want to cut it, like 2.5-ish or so. So you get 4 pieces out of it. Okay, so you have 4 pieces. Some are bigger than the others. That's okay, but this will get a little bit bigger as it goes along. So if you have kids and they want a smaller piece, here you go. Now you have 4 or 8 pieces, and get your baking sheet. And I forgot to prepare our baking sheet, which was step number 1. I apologize. So we take our butter again. Want to butter up our pan. If you don't want to, you could use the parchment paper. And you just put these on then. Now you'll be surprised how big these things get, particularly these end pieces. Okay, so you just set them up like this. Now these go into the oven, the refrigerator again for 15 minutes. And you take them out. And these are baked at 375, a different temperature. I think these go for about 22 to 25 minutes, again, depending on the oven that you have at home. Everything varies. If they start to get too brown at the 20 mark, then you might need to take them out. But you put them in the refrigerator for 15 minutes, take them out, brush them with the egg and heavy cream mixture, and sprinkle them with the turbinado sugar if you'd like. If not, you could wait and just put the sugar glaze on, or you could do both, which actually tastes really good. Any questions about that?
Linda Noonan doesn't have a question, but says fabulous presentation.
All right. Well, the last thing I want to do is I just want to show you the scones. Let me just clean up here real quick. So this is the blueberry scone, okay? And this is how, and I'm sure everyone who's watching has been to the cafe. If you haven't, you have to come now. It's a requirement. This is the blueberry scone, and this is the trifold scone. So I mean, it's really different, traditional triangle, trifold, and you can kind of see how this is wrapping over. I baked these yesterday afternoon, packaged them up last night. It's still really soft. It smells really fresh. So if I don't know how close you guys can get to see this, but I mean, if you look at the different textures, this is more airy. And then you can see all the different layers in it. And so it tastes different because of the different textures. If I had a choice between either of these, gosh, it's really hard to choose, but I do like the cherry scone just because of the different layers. It's more of a pastry kind of texture and feel. So they're both pretty good. But, you know, let's see, I think that's all that I have on this class. So I hope everyone enjoyed it. I hope you're making your scones at home, and I'd love to get some feedback from you of what you liked, what you didn't like, how your scones turned out. You know, bring one in. Let me taste it. I'd love to taste it too. Come on by the cafe and say hi.
Larry asks, how long to bake the blueberry scones?
The blueberry, I had, what do you say, about 20 minutes, 22 to 25 as well. And the trifold were about 25 to 30. These take a little bit longer because they're thicker. There's more layers in it. So the dough is a little bit, there's more dough to cook out. But again, it depends on your oven. You know, it might be less.
Patricia says, this was so fun. Will we be able to see the video again afterward?
I believe, yes, it's archived on the library's website, Facebook page, social media.
And Marianne says, so much. It was a great event. I think something got lost. Debbie says, thank you. I got a little hung up on the butter, lol, but I'll keep going. Colleen and Amanda say, for the trifold, do we make the egg wash mixture to brush on top or not necessary?
You don't have to do it. I mean, what the egg wash does, it helps it brown. If you don't do it, it won't brown as much. It also adds some crispness to the dough. And if you're sprinkling with the turbinado sugar, because when you're brushing it with the liquid, the sugar will stick to it a little bit better. It's not required, but it just adds some more color to it.
And Patricia says, my blueberry scones are in the oven and smell amazing.
Oh, good. Good. I'm glad to hear
We
that.
wish we could smell them.
I'm glad to hear that. And if you do make these, you know, they're good to keep out for a day or two. If you do put them after you bake them, if you put them in the fridge, they're good up to like 5 days. I would recommend, if you do have them in the fridge, to warm them up somehow. Put them in the microwave. If you have a toasting oven, would be great. Toasting oven would, you know, is a preferred way to do it. Microwaving just kind of like just injects it with the heat, so it might get a little soft that way. The toasting oven will help keep them a little bit crispy on top, and then served with a little bit more butter.
Okay, we have no more questions or comments. Thank you everyone for coming and for baking along with us.
Bye.
Bye.